My name is Raymond Cottrell. I'm the superintendent for MBCon, doing the lighting renovation for the Columbia Museum of Art. My aunt was a dean at Emory for their art department. I learned a whole lot about how to communicate through her and through art. And sometimes these conversations happen between the artist and the person who's viewing the art hundreds of years apart from each other. And in order to communicate with someone on that level, it takes a bit of an investment on your part. It's not all about you. It's about the person that's viewing the art, and everybody's going to see it differently. "90% of the things that I build, most of the work that goes into it, are things the public will never see. The lighting, how clean the ceilings are or the walls are, that goes kind of unseen, and it should go unseen. What I'm trying to do with this renovation is refresh all those things, sharpen the edges, but I want it to be very familiar when we're done. I really got a kick out of Della brought everybody, the entire staff down there, to sign the inside of a wall. And I thought that was such a great way to put your mark on something that only you know it's there. You know, I really want the people who come to the museum to appreciate what it takes to operate this facility. How much thought, how much work goes into it. Not for me or my crews, but for your guys, for Della, for everybody who runs this museum. I want them to come see the museum. I want them to see the work that you guys put in. It's really important. The person I can't wait to come back and show is my son. I want him to come see the work and see the museum, and then what his evaluation of my job is. But that's a big part of my motivation in the construction business is I want to see how the public sees it. That's why you do it. That's why you do this work.
You're listening to Binder. I'm Drew Barron. Hey y'all, producer Drew here. This is an exciting day, and it's not just an exciting day because I'm finally back in our podcast studio after many months of remote recording and recording in my office, as anyone who was listening last month might recall. But we are back in the studio. I am here today. Ray is out, but I am not here alone. I'm actually here with a very, very special guest. She's been on the show once before, but it was a really long time ago. It's our executive director, Della Watkins. Della, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I like this cozy studio. It's a place for me to talk to you and share our projects coming up.
I wouldn't have expected talking to me being on most of the things that you would have liked about it, but that's exciting. No, it's great to be here. You know, as our listeners probably know by now, it's our 75th anniversary. So one of our big goals here with the podcast is really to be able to tell some of those stories about the museum, and talk to some of the major movers and shakers that have had their involvement with it over the years. So it's really exciting to have you here to be able to share a little bit about not only what we've done up to the 75th anniversary year, but where we're going. So with that, why don't we just jump in? I mean, about a year ago, maybe in 2024, you brought the whole staff together and you had a single question for everyone. And that question was, why do we celebrate anniversaries? And it's a great question. And we got a lot of really interesting answers from different members of the staff.
We did.
But now that the tables have turned and I'm the one asking the questions, I wanted to pose the same question for you. Like, why do you think it's important to celebrate an anniversary?
Well, you know, when I talked to the staff about it, it was so insightful for me to pause and think about why anniversaries are important. Because there were anniversaries for everything. The staff was so giving in their responses. Yeah. Everything from, well, it's the day I got my first dog, or it's the day I moved into my house.
Right.
But what I really began to figure out was everybody had a different reason, which really helped me explore, okay, so why in the world is turning 75 important to the Columbia Museum of Art? How's it important to the community? How's it important to our life? But it really gave us a chance as a team to really recommit our values, our core values. Think about why we do things. It reminds us, and this is what I'm most proud of, it reminds us of things, what matters. the things that I celebrate matter to me. So, I want that same joy to come to the community. I also think an anniversary is a time for us to begin to reflect on our cultural identity, what shaped us, and how we can understand the past to see how we are today.
Yeah.
And it sometimes takes the pause of an anniversary to figure that out. And I'm also a practical person. So I also think, an anniversary year, I'm darn proud of 75 years of this institution, this organization, this destination. So as I thought about that, I thought, heck, what opportunities can I leverage? How can I re-energize our brand? What goal do we have now? And how can that build on something bigger? So my mind is just spinning on all the things that an anniversary is able to lift. And I think that's the really important thing. It's a big lift. And I've really thought about that a lot over the years as we have, delved into our projects.
Yeah, you mentioned community a lot just now, and that is no surprise because if I know anything about you, which we've worked together for 8 years now, 7, 8 years, and like that has always been in the forefront. You talk about it all the time at our all staff meetings. It's like clearly something that really matters to you. I mean, you mentioned our core values, and part of that core values is we have these 5 experience promises that we promise to the community. One of which is community centeredness. So it's right there in what we promise to the folks in this community is that we are going to put them front and center. And so we kind of have hinted at why an anniversary or a milestone like this might be important, internally, right? But like if I'm a member of the community and this is my museum, like why does this anniversary matter to me as a community member?
Yeah. Well, very naturally, and by training, I'm an educator. And, being an educator at heart really grounds me in the desire and wish and hope and the opportunities that a museum can give to a community. I really want to share what we have, but more importantly, I want to engage in that sharing. When I started out as a younger person in the field of museum work and art history work, it was so object-centered that everything was about showing the object and the object being the star and the object being most important. But, over my time, I'm so happy. And that's where I've grown so much as an educator and as a museum director, because it's not about the object.
Yeah.
Curator might put up a fuss about that, but it's really about the engagement with the object. So we flipped the script and now it's about the visitor experience. So if you have the most beautiful object in the whole world, but no one sees it, it has no sharing or ability to relate. But if you turn it around and prepare your visitor through labels or programming or tours or all the things that we try to help our visitors engage, then it becomes an experience. And I think that's the difference.
Do you think that you're compelled that way because you come from an education background? Or I guess for you personally, why is that so important?
Well, I think, you're right. I mean, at my core is I have something to show you and I want to tell you about it. And let me figure, at my core, it's about sharing. And I think that's a very educator-led natural tendency.
Yeah.
I think that I've come along in the field and, it's relevant to today. Everything has changed today.
I think you're right. I mean, and I think that's what audiences are craving.
Yeah.
So you're at the right place at the right time.
No,
so I appreciate that.
Good.
We mentioned a moment ago, I mean, obviously you've been here for 7 years now. You've seen a lot, in that period of time. There's been a lot of changes, culturally in the community, in this building. But as we stated at the very beginning, I mean, this building's been around, or not this building, but this institution has been around for at least 75 years. I mean, you could trace it even further back if you want to start talking about the Columbia Arts Association, which you should listen to our last podcast if you want to learn more about that. But, it's obviously left an impact with our community as a whole. But I wonder, both looking at it from that perspective, that long view, and also in your time here, what do you think the legacy of this institution in the community really has been?
Well, one of the things I think is to be a destination. We have a bigger ambition is to make people feel like they belong here.
Yeah.
And in that belonging, I've been thinking a lot about what makes me feel like I belong when I go somewhere, and how is it a valuable experience for me? And I think people begin to trust in an organization. Heck, we're 75 years old, so certainly they trust that we'll be here as far as, one of the things that help people belong is a sense of stability.
Mm-hmm.
Can I trust they'll be there? Can I trust the experience? And I think being authentic. I believe with all my heart in the power of art, and the power of sharing that art, and the connections you can make, and the perspectives, going in some place to see something you don't like or know, and then come out seeing a whole nother side of art or people or a culture. Is it a place I can feel comfortable? Is it a place I feel like I belong? Is it a place where I can count on a good experience? And good, qualify that. Was I surprised? Did I come away feeling conflicted? Did it relate to something? Did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many possibilities in looking at, what legacy is and what a long view of what an institution is. I also think that, for legacy, I'm so proud of our team, volunteers, people we hire, our scholars, our artists. All of those people are committing their time and interest to make this a place people want to be, and a place people want to visit, and a place people want to recommend others visit.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what legacy is, that it becomes not to miss opportunity in your town.
Yeah. And when you think about it from that perspective, I mean, it really makes me think of, and this is really an internal goal. We don't always talk about this out loud, but internally, our goal is to be that beloved institution for our community and for our greater community. And looking back at your time here, I'm curious, are there some moments that you think have pushed that needle, moved us closer to that ultimate goal?
When I think about that, what is moving the needle? Well, this may sound like an absolute cop-out, but every single exhibition that we bring in, it recharges me with the newness, the changing perspective, a new way to look at things. It really renews me. And I think our exhibition program is stellar.
Yeah.
I mean, we are showing different mediums, photography and sculpture and quilts and paintings. We are showing artists that are thousands of years old, all the way to people working today. That range just gives people an opportunity to find themselves. They give people an opportunity to learn. I'm so proud of having content that is meaningful and shared with others.
Yeah.
When you talk about how people start to look at a museum and what legacy is, I'm from a tiny little town in Virginia.
Yeah.
And it's Tappahannock, Virginia. It's east of Richmond. And we didn't have a museum at all. And my parents weren't museum goers. So my very first education experience, I was 17 years old in high school, and my art teacher was asked to select one female and one male from the senior class to go to a special program in Richmond, Virginia at the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. And I was selected because I was an art student and I was eager to learn. And I went. The program was called 3 Days in March. So for 3 days, I went to Richmond. I walked into the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, which was this, big place with things I'd never seen before. They had marble furniture and everything was grand and everything was different. And it was the first time I'd stayed in a hotel by myself, mind you. So, it was this whole experience. And I remember, and I can tell you, today I can remember sitting in one of those workshops in the museum thinking, look what's out here. There's so much more I don't know. I mean, it was the bug that bit me.
Mm-hmm.
And, in that, my hunger to learn. And when I go to a city, I have to trade with my children today. We're going to go for an educational experience. And then we're also going to go on the roller coaster. We're going to, but I think that, and that's what I want this museum to be to people in our community. A place where you're assured there'll be an experience that you may be new to. I'm hoping you're walking away inspired.
Yeah. I mean, I think people do. And so like, thinking about that, I mean, obviously our work isn't done, right? Like it's never done.
Never, ever. Never, ever.
But you're the big future vision person here, right? That's your job. One of many. You do a ton of things here, but one of your big roles is that you are like looking towards the future, looking towards our future as an institution and how we can better serve the community. So like thinking about that idea of like being that beloved institution, like what's next? Where do we need to head?
Well, right on top of us right now is, we've been talking a lot about legacy. Legacy, we are in a physical destination. And being in a physical destination, we have a tremendous responsibility to preserve art.
Yeah.
So we have 7,400 plus objects in this collection. And the collection is in need of our care. So as we move through 75 years of history, doggone it, we also move toward the times in the history of our building that we have to take care of capital needs. And our capital need that has risen to the top is 25 years ago, we moved into the Macy's department store where we live today. It was renovated for purpose-built museum operations, but 25 years are now past, and we're at the point where several things have become in need of our attention, one of which is our lighting. So the gallery lighting that was put in 25 years ago is now obsolete. And when I say that, it means that the fixtures, the bulbs, the tracks, we no longer can buy. Just like your bulbs and incandescent lights in your house. You may not want a Piggly Wiggly light in your lamp, or you may have the wrong, it's too blue or too... Same thing that we're experiencing on a professional level with our lighting system. So what we've been doing over the last couple of years, we've sort of stockpiled from other institutions across the nation to make sure we have enough fixtures and bulbs. But as bulbs burn out, we can't buy them anymore. So the curatorial team was very clear with me, like, we're running out of lights. Mm-hmm. So we've been working over the last year to prepare a construction project, and we've launched it in January. And it is a gallery lighting project. And that project means that we will take the 26 exhibition galleries and we will replace all of their lighting. Now, talk about seizing the day. It is a chance for me to have a legacy thumbprint on the physical destination of this facility. So we're going to put in all the lights. They'll be producing less heat. The quality of the light, Drew, I cannot even describe to you how clean the light is. What we have now is beautiful lighting, but it is moving to like the brightest, crisp day. Mm-hmm. And so we will see art like we have never seen it before because it will be lit with the right color temperature. It'll be the right foot candles. It'll be all the things that needs to preserve our art and to show our art. And while we're in there, it's an opportunity for us to further take care of some needs of the museum. So that the team, you and everybody else, keeps a wish list of things that we would like to add to the museum, eliminate, change, fix. So what we're doing with our lighting project, we're also taking care of some of the things that needed our closer attention. So the integrity of the walls in the museum, you wouldn't think about it, but there's plywood and wallboard on every gallery, and it is beautiful. But we hang everything 60 inches to center on that wall each time we take a piece down, put a piece up. So imagine after 25 years, changing rotations 3 and 4 times, we are now putting the same nail hole in the same existing hole because we keep going in the same spot. So we are replacing the plywood. So the walls will all have the same ability to safely hold our art. And the curators told me, I really would like, while you got the ceilings open for the construction of the lighting grids, do you think we could put some braces up there so we can hang art from the ceiling? So it's have you ever read the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie?
Yep.
If you give a mouse a cookie, they're certainly going to want a glass of milk. And then they're going to want to, So same thing here. So what we did is in preparing for the renovation, we really took time to take care of the wish list and help with our future efficiency around HVAC. Those boiling hot lights, incandescent lights running all those hours a day are going to straight LEDs, which will be cooler, which will be greener, which will be safer. So the project, we've got it under containment, but it's really taking care of a lot of our wish lists for the next 25 years.
I'm glad you brought up a wish list because I actually have one prepared right now.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
It.
But no, I totally agree. And I mean, the funny thing about a project like this is if we do our job right, you won't be able to tell, which is like, doesn't sound great on its head, but like, that's like the goal. Like good lighting in a museum means that you are not paying attention to the lighting in the museum, right?
That is right. Have you ever been in a museum or an exhibition space, and while you're looking at it, you've seen your own shadow? That is because they don't have the professionals like we do that are lighting it correctly. It may not, because we wash the walls with light first, and then we light the object additionally, which takes away that shadow. So your experience is much better. So you're right. Everything that we do is to make it a better place to be. We tore down walls. We've replaced grid ceilings. And you better believe it. When people come in, they're going to think, well, what did you do for the last couple of months? Because it should look seamless.
We'll be back with more from Della Watkins after this. Hey y'all, producer Drew here. When the Columbia Museum of Art began 75 years ago, it did more than just open its doors. It created opportunities, sparked conversations, broadened perspectives, and ignited moments of discovery through art. Over the years, we've expanded significantly, moving from the stately house on Senate Street to the iconic building on Main Street. The CMA isn't just a museum. It's a dynamic hub where art comes alive and everyone is invited to join the experience. But we can't do any of this without the support of our community. And a great way to show your support is by becoming a member of the Columbia Museum of Art. Not only will you receive great benefits like museum admission, early registration, and discounts, but your contribution will directly support initiatives at this museum, such as our public access days, educational programs, and so much more. You can learn more about CMA membership at columbiamuseum.org/belong. Help us continue to bring unforgettable creative experiences for all of the residents and visitors of South Carolina to enjoy for the next 75 years and beyond. columbiamuseum.org/belong. And now, back to the show. This is by far not your first rodeo when it comes to a renovation project either. So Della had the joy of inheriting our last renovation project right when she first started. She walked straight in the door with a hard hat on.
I did.
And before that, you worked with the Taubman Museum in Roanoke, and you helped them with a renovation project too. I mean, I would imagine in those kind of scenarios, even though it's an exciting time and you're like excited to help move these institutions into the next level, it's got to have challenges too, right? Like there's like
every day.
Are there any that like stick out in your mind that you had to overcome, like a hurdle or something like that?
Yes, and I call the first month of any construction project, I call the discovery period. Because, when you tear things down and look behind walls and in ceilings and through HVACs, forever the construction team are saying, I need to see you downstairs. Can you come take a look? Because we're finding things. But I've had the great benefit of having construction teams that are very cued into problem solving.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's opportunities in some of the things you find too, right? Like some surprises. One specific example I can think of is I was on your tour the other day and you were showing off a cross section of the wall.
Come on up, I want to show you. Now, I told you how much paint was on the wall. This is just a little piece of the wall. That's how heavy.
You get nails through it to hold it.
That's just the paint. See how heavy that is? It's very heavy. So this is what was up there. So they did a cross section. So that it's always a piece of plywood. Then it's the wall board. And this is a cutaway to show you how much paint. That's how much paint. They just did a little.
It's kind of like almost like when you look at the rings of a tree, right?
Yes.
Because all of the different times that we've painted this wall for various exhibitions. And these are the galleries downstairs. So it happens a lot, right? You could see the different layers. And it was like almost like the history of this institution visualized in a large cross section. So I think it also gives us a chance to reflect on all the things that we've done in an interesting way, you know?
Yeah, you don't think about a wall that has been painted. So if it's 25 years of use and we paint it 3 times a year, 75 layers of paint are telling a story. The other thing is they're adding weight to the wall. So the wall starts to bow a little bit or give a little bit, but it's also 75 layers of paint on the doors. So then the doors don't swing. So, it compounds. That's an opportunity for us when we refresh the plywood for stability. We'll take down 75 layers of paint. I mean, it's like a plastic shield on every wall. But those are the kind of things that we're looking at now to make sure that we prepare for the future.
So I mentioned that you've done several of these projects. Was the Taubman the first museum that you worked on for a renovation project?
The Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in Richmond.
Oh, okay.
And that was an interesting one because I was kind of a newbie. Yeah. But at that time in my career, I was the director of education and outreach. So they brought me into the design team. There was only 16 of us. But my job was to keep an eye on the project about how the building was going to be used. So I was thinking about things like, well, where do the tour groups come in? Where do we stage overflow? How do people get in and out of the theater? All the very practical guest usage. How many bathrooms are on which floor? All the things that we need.
Question, yeah.
All the things that we need. So what I was able to do while I am feeding that information and visitor-centric ideas to the construction team, they're also teaching me how to read blueprints, what change orders are, when you make a change, how that affects things, when surprises come up, and we have to really pivot. And I've been in conversations where they would come to me and say, well, the children's studio has, some kind of construction or HVAC wall, and we need to reduce it by 6 feet. I'm like, oh, wait a minute, 6 feet, and I still need to get 30 children in there? That won't work. So maybe we need to bust out another wall. So it's just that ability to be very fluid. In a construction project, the devil is in the details.
You almost answered my next question for me, but I am curious, do you think that you approach a project like this differently now than you would have? I mean, obviously, definitely when you were like the director of education as opposed to like an executive director, but looking at some of these other projects, do you think that your approach has changed any?
It has. Couple of things that I've learned. It takes a bigger team than you think, and it takes management of that team. And that is not only the internal museum team, but I'm working alongside a construction team. So I have to slow my roll a little bit. I'm an activator. Let's get things done. Let's galvanize everybody together. We can do it together. My galvanizing skill set has really grown. Why we're going to do things, how we're going to do them, communicating that well so that everybody is part of the process. In my first couple of projects, I thought you could just hammer it down. You could hire the right people and it just happened. Well, that's a no. That's something I've really learned, that it takes everybody. Everybody's job is affected by a big construction project. How you get in the building that day or how are you going to redirect your guests that day? Everybody needs to be on the same page. And communication is key. And I've learned about communication. That is a big, big thing. Tenacity is a must, because when I said the devil's in the details, if you don't watch everything that's going on, your vision can never unfold because you're compromising if you're not there. I'm there every day. And I found, and you asked me earlier, I just thought of something. I found in one of my projects, I go in one day, I see them starting to cut a door in a wall, and it was the wrong room.
Oh, no.
And it was going to be in the middle of a gallery.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, and I remember, and I said, stop what you're doing. Just stop what you're doing for a minute. I need to look at the blueprints, because I knew darn well there wasn't going to be a door in the middle of the gallery. And just something had gotten flip-flopped and communication had slipped. Things like that, if you're not there watching, are happening.
And you are there. Like, let me
I like
say,
it.
you are definitely there. Della is here. Well, I feel like you must have a cot in your office because it seems like you're always here now, especially with this project happening. But I mean, even before that, I mean, I think people probably inherently understand this, but I think it's worth mentioning that like these projects don't just happen when the construction starts. They start way before that. You know, you had to fundraise for this project, talking to the community, getting like buy-in from like our partners and our other institutions. And you continue to share this gift and this excitement with the community. I mentioned a moment ago, I was on one of your tours. And for anyone listening that doesn't know what I'm referring to, Della gives hard hat tours to the community. And these are free events that you can sign up for. Anyone listening right now can find information about it on our website. But they're great tours, you know, like not only is it like a cool opportunity to literally throw a hard hat on and go inside of a construction area, but Della does like a wonderful job of like explaining what you're seeing and what difference it's going to make in the same way she's doing on this podcast. But you get that nice visual element and you get some of that great FaceTime.
One of the things I want you to notice are the walls. The walls will be finished to what we call level 5 walls. Your walls at home are level 2, maybe sometimes 3, whereas if you shine a light on your wall at home, you can see brush strokes and you can see divots and dimples. You can see all that. When we finish, it's completely smooth all the way down. Because when we light our walls, we so heavily light that you could see every blemish if we didn't go to that degree of detail.
You know, I got to give you credit, Della, because I don't know that every executive director would willingly be that transparent, you know?
Well, you know, that's another thing I've learned over the years is, you know, hard hat tours are my vehicle for feedback, input, criticism, joy, you know, and I get everything. The public is invited, and I hope everyone will come and see, because it is your museum, and I like to see what I'm doing to help this museum grow. But it has been a time in the past where somebody's come in and just, you know, really heckled me and gave me a hard time about something they didn't like about the museum. But that's okay. That's a chance for me to work with them on what's going bad or what they're unhappy about. But it's also a chance for the people that are so proud of this museum and happy with the jewel box treasure that is in this community. It is for everyone that wants to participate. And there are a lot of people that come in and just say, I just want to see what's going on. There's also people that come in and say, I want to see how it's done. You know, those are the curiosity seekers about, well, tell me like the 007 behind the scenes stuff that makes the museum run. All the arts and crate come in through here off the loading dock, and they come into this room, which we call crate storage. And they have to climatize back to our conditions before we can open them, depending on how hot or cold it is outside and how the crates, they live here. When art is taken out, our registrar takes a look at it, condition reports it, makes sure everything's all right, and then it starts its way into the galleries. So this is it's fascinating. It's a lot of behind-the-scenes support to make Art Museum run. So I'm not afraid of anybody that wants to come in and just share their thoughts or give me feedback. It might be full of criticism that day, but I learn from that, because you learn from the good, you learn from the bad. So hard hat tours are a way that, you know, I can just share freely, you know, all the good work here.
Yeah. And, you know, the one that I was recently on that you're probably hearing clips from right now, I would say like the mood was overwhelmingly excited and positive. You know, it seemed like the community was just really engaged. They had a lot of great questions for you. Yeah. It was so cool to just be a fly on the wall and like see that interaction, you know? Yeah. And, you know, even though I've been hearing about this for months, I actually honestly learned quite a few things on that tour.
Good.
And so I really do urge anyone listening right now, if they're interested, to look into this, because they're really interesting. And it's a rare opportunity. You don't always get to do something like this. So please check those out.
Don't forget to tell them what the icing on the cake is at the end of the tour, because the tour continues forward into going into our curatorial spaces, and the curators will give our guests an overview of reinstalling the collection.
We started just kind of looking at each of the works that we were taking down. There were 340-ish pieces of art that were up in the previous reinstallation, and we have taken almost all of that art down since the 21st of January. We've steadily been taking works out and bringing them down here to our storage. And we selected works that we knew we wanted to keep out, that were important works we wanted to keep on view. We thought about works that needed to come down for sure, mostly based
So
on
anytime you work in the ceiling, you have to take everything off view. We have to put it into storage for safekeeping. So while it's in safekeeping, we can plan for how we're going to bring it back out and put it in new ways in the galleries.
Mm-hmm.
So much to the curatorial dismay, everything had to go. So they have an opportunity to reinstall 26 galleries. 6 downstairs will open with Sam Gilliam prints in May, but the permanent collection or the things that we have in ownership here at the museum will be reinstalled. So reinstalling a collection, there are over 7,000 works of art. So how do you choose about 400 or less are all that are going to be able to go up? And that's a knock I get all the time from the community. You got 7,000 works, but you only show 400 of them? It's space.
Yep.
I mean, we have to have space between paintings and space for people to walk around and space for doors and space for exit signs. So when we reinstall the art this time, we're going to do it by collection area. But the surprises will be pauses and moments where we'll mix it up a little bit to give you a chance to contextualize art or show maybe how the artist relates to one another. So there'll be moments of learning and sharing. So again, we're back to our legacy in 75 years. We don't want to stay static.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to do that, we need to, yes, improve our capital and our building, but we also need to keep presenting the art in ways that engage new thinking and new looking.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a really important point here to remember for our audiences is like, we can't just do this anytime. To do a massive reinstallation of a collection takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning. And you've kind of insinuated that already with the amount of effort that the curatorial team is putting in. And with that, we can't just be doing this whenever we want. So like utilizing these moments when we already have to do another project is essential in order for us to be able to do a massive reinstallation like this.
Yes, there's certainly parallel planning for every department.
Mm-hmm.
So while the curators are looking at how the art's going to go up, visitor services is looking about how they're going to serve the visitors. The education team is working alongside, doing everything from programming to tours. I mean, and the communications team, we have to look at every label and rewrite the label so they're relevant to the art as it is displayed in that space. So everybody is looking at this opportunity to refresh, to show works. I mean, we'll be pulling out works that, are you ready? Never have been seen.
Yeah.
Some are gifts, some are new purchases, but there are also things that in our 75-year history that haven't had their day. They haven't had a chance to come out relevant to something else was on that display. So speaking of which, the grand opening will be in January. When all the construction is done and the construction team is out, we need to hit it hard because we will be using the fall to reinstall all the galleries. So January the 16th, we are having a grand reopening, heck of a party, big celebration. You name it, come see it. First look at your refreshed CMA.
And that's going to be really exciting. But, in the meantime, we have a ton of really exciting things. What I don't want listeners to take away is like, oh, well, the galleries upstairs are like not on view right now. Well, that is technically true, right? But like, that doesn't mean that we don't have anything on view. And in fact, by the time this comes out, we will be probably about a month away from the opening of our 2 exhibitions, special exhibitions downstairs. You hinted at one a moment ago. We have Sam Gilliam Printmaker. Really excited for that one. Anyone who doesn't know Sam Gilliam's work listening now, well, get out your phone and look him up because he's a great artist. And we do have a second exhibition opening in the summer, and it's called Let's Have a Talk. Black artists in the CMA collection. Really excited for that. It will coincide with our Sam Gilliam show, and they kind of speak to each other. They kind of have a conversation. They're having a talk as well. And so that'll be really exciting. And then in the fall, we have an exhibition that I personally am extremely excited about, and that's Keith Haring, Radiant Vision. And I could sit here and list all the cool things we have going on, but I want to know from you, Della, what are you excited about in these next 12 months? I mean, obviously we're excited about this collection reinstallation, but what about some of these other things that we have coming up during our 75th year?
Well, you are right. I'm really looking forward to the spring and summer and going forward. Now, this spring, we have lots of programs, but we're going to roll right into summer camps for children. We're going to have free admission for all South Carolina residents from Memorial Day to Labor Day through Art Bridges grant. And programming. So the Boyd Plaza will be full of programming. We're going to still be doing concerts and classes and talks. We're going to be looking at special opportunities for children and families. All that is constantly going on.
And yeah, and I'm glad that you said constantly going on, because even right now, we're looking forward in the moment. But in this contemporary time that you're listening to this podcast, I guarantee you, if you go on that website within the next week, you're going to find an event you can join in on right now, because we don't ever stop. We don't ever stop here at the museum. This is part of the secret sauce to our success here, I think, at your museum, is that we get to constantly bring you a diverse variety of different programming and different ways to just experience art and interact with it. So please do look on our website, see what's available right now. I don't want to say anything specifically because I don't know when you're listening to this. You might be listening to this 3 weeks after it came out, and I don't want to give you an event that's already happened. So do a little research for yourself. Go in there and find out some information on that and get excited, because this is going to be a very big year for the Columbia Museum of Art. And from all of us here, I can say that we're so excited to be able to share all the things that we have coming up with you. I know that Della is, because I can see it in her eyes right now.
To say it's your museum. Come on over.
Della Watkins has been the executive director of the Columbia Museum of Art since October 2017. She's a mighty busy lady, but she's always happy to take the time to talk to you. So if you'd like the opportunity to do so, check out a hard hat tour. You can find more information on our website. You know the address, columbiamuseum.org. Thanks for joining us today on the Binder Podcast. I hope this interview today has gotten you excited about all the new things happening at the Columbia Museum of Art. We really appreciate all the support you've been giving us during this renovation period and for our 75th anniversary year. It's going to be a really big year, and we're so excited to share with you everything that we have going on. It's because of supporters like you that we're able to do things like this, and it means so much. Ray will be back next month with a more classic Binder Podcast episode, so be sure to tune in then. We're getting back on track, and thanks to all of you once again for listening, supporting, and just being awesome people. See you next month. The Binder Podcast is a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. This episode was produced, edited, and hosted by me, Drew Barron. Special assistance from Joel Ryan Cook. If you'd like to learn more about CMA exhibitions and programs, or the lighting project that we discussed today, check out our website, columbiamuseum.org.